Ready.
Go.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning and Happy New Year to everyone, starting off 2022. Welcome to the January 6th, 2022 Planning Board meeting, our regular monthly meeting. And seeing we have a quorum with three of us, we will call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. If you could stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Meeting's in order. First order of business for the planning board. Does anyone wish to amend the present agenda we have?
Nope.
If so, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
I so move.
Okay. Can we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The agenda is so approved. First item we'll do, item number 3, public comments, 3 minutes per speaker, and no deliberation with board members. Do we have any public comments? Bob, good morning.
I'm Bob Forrester, 110 Crooked Gully Circle. My comments wanted to address the number 4 on your agenda, the proposed amendment to the UDO on the sign regulations. I recognize the need that Bill Clark Holmes would have to deal with the signs as the ordinance is presently written, a sign in the common area, the facilities area. But as it's written, what I caution you as it's written, it's going to impact every single project that exists or to exist. For instance, I know I can just off the top of my head, I can think of 10 instances in Sea Trail alone where there's signs that don't comply, that will now be out of compliance with the ordinance. Not just dealing with facilities, but signs in general. One of the things that I think that you need to do is seriously consider and define what the ordinance means by a subdivision and a PRD, because that's what it applies to. And then I think that any change to the ordinance should be include or address commercial signs in the residential zones, because there are commercial signs in the residential zones. And I know in my past experience, people came to me for existing commercial signs in residential zones that they wanted to change, not just change the lettering on. And in talking with past planning directors and whatnot, they said, you can't do it. It's a non-conforming sign, and you'd have to use the same lettering and things but the names would change and things like that. So I think that the ordinance should provide some provision for, because they do exist, and you would expect that possibly they would exist, a commercial sign in the residential zone, because this applies to residential zones. But my overall comment is, I think there's a need to address it for what the Bill Clark's concerns are, but once you address it for them, it impacts every other single development in the residential zones, and I think you ought to be concerned with how it impacts those. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. Any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to consideration of approval of the minutes for a prior planning board meeting of November 4th, 2021. Board, any comments on the minutes that have been submitted to you in the package?
Looks fine.
No.
Sybil? I have a comment. It's more housekeeping. Bob, your time is up. Um,
Yeah.
Cindy, I think to be clear in the minutes, I'd like to suggest a couple changes. And it's on the first page, starting off with Stardomsky said we do need to vote. And it goes down to the last line in that single paragraph. It says vice chair once it is reestablished. The point that I was trying to make at that meeting was that once a full 5-member board had been established, and so I'd like the word "it" after vice chair once to be revised to, instead of "it," a full 5-member board. And secondly, in the paragraph down one from there, it starts off with Sybil making a comment. And after, again, the word vice chair, it says, until a full board is in place. I'd like to say vice chair to serve until, well, chair and vice chair to serve until a full board in place. Because it's not clear as to when the board would entertain discussing the election of a chair and vice chair. Any objections to that wording change?
No, well, no, I mean, that was our, I guess, consensus. Technically, probably, I'm not sure if that's technically correct. Because once we elected, we are elected. I mean, we talked about that we would have another election. But I guess I'm not sure the right way to write it. I mean, we kind of knew what we were thinking, but I'm not sure if that's, I mean, technically, you are the chairman.
It was very clear. I made it very
Right,
clear
but I don't think
twice
there's any,
in the
I don't
record.
think there's anything in the, we kind of decided that when we get 5, we would do whatever it takes to hold a new election.
Exactly.
And I
Well,
guess
but
it's kind of a rules committee thing.
the minutes
But
need
technically,
to,
we
the
are
minutes
chair-
need to state that, though,
Yeah.
Ron.
I know what
my
you're saying.
point.
I agree.
Mhm.
But I think technically, the rules are, we had an election, we're it.
Okay.
Until we have
You
another
oppose
election.
that? You oppose it then,
No,
the change?
no, not really, I guess. I think how you write it is that we've kind of agreed to try to have another election when the board is reconstituted. But I guess technically up to that point, it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking sort of at least at the rules committee on what the rules are. We're elected now until
Yeah.
somebody else is elected, right?
Yeah.
But we agreed by discussion that our intent was to, so I don't know.
All right, I
agree. I mean, I know.
I'm going to
you're right when
withdraw
you're saying-
my suggestion of the revision, because now I've got it on the record for the third time
You're
as to
right.
what the intention
We know
is.
what our
So
intentions are.
There's
but-
no
Yeah.
need in
Yeah.
revising it.
I,
I'd like to see a motion to accept the minutes as written.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Uh,
Aye. All right, Cindy, the minutes are approved as is. I need another copy from you to be able to sign, because I have margin notes that I've written in this one. All right, thank you. All right, moving forward into new business, and it's great to see participation in the audience. Normally we have one or none, so this is great. New business number 1, Seaside Village SF preliminary plat approval. And Chad, can you give us some opening comments on that,
Sure,
please?
absolutely. The Earthworks Group applicant on behalf of Seaside Townhomes. I don't want the townhomes to be confused. This is a single family 16 lot subdivision for preliminary plat consideration. They're requesting preliminary plat of a Seaside Village. This preliminary plat is for 16 single family lots. The subject property is currently located in Seaside Village in the mixed use district of Sunset Beach. The subject property is about 2.27 acres in size and currently zoned mixed use, and may be further identified by the parcel number on your staff report. The supplemental documentation is there. The house rendering drawings are there, The plat is there, the landscaping plan is there. I do have the owner applicant, and I think I have Kelly Stewart on behalf of the POA HOA for Carolina Dreams, for Seaside Village as well. If you have any comments for me or them or all parties or any party involved.
Okay. Will there be a presentation from the applicant, or should we just proceed to discuss this as a planning board and then ask questions?
If you, I can ask Dave. They do not. If you have any questions directly for them, they are available.
Okay. All right.
We're available if you have questions.
Thank you. Planning board, any comments or questions on the packet as we see it in front of us?
Couple.
Ron, go ahead.
First of all, packet page 29. This letter from Eric Brankovich. First of all, I guess what was the number? Some places we say 16 and then it says 15.
I think there are 16. I agree with
But-
you on that comment.
Yeah, I mean it shows that, but then like on the landscaping plan, there's like a blank lot on C1, which is the fourth one from the right. So I guess maybe some clarification. Are we talking 15 homes or 16 homes? Is it just a typo or whatever? And then on my mind, and this is more, I guess, a question for Chad, since this is a preliminary plat, I'm concerned about stormwater drainage and runoff. Because I think we've looked at this property before, way back, and my memory shows me that there was more pipes running underneath this property from the existing property to that pond that needed to be replaced and moved around and stuff. They're showing one here, which I think is the blank lot in question, whether they're making that like a empty pipe easement or something. But how does it work with, this is a preliminary plat approval, and then they're gonna come back for a final.
Correct.
And of course, if you look at the vicinity map, you have now a very large site just above it.
Mhm.
And I'm just wondering on this, I know the county does stormwater. When will that be done? And when does we get to say that it's done properly? Because I'm concerned, it seems to me, and I couldn't find the old plans because I think I finally disposed of it because it's like more than 2 years ago, that there was more pipe issues under this property that we discussed, talking about not making sure it wasn't under a house, that it was easement in between lots, and for maintenance, and we're only showing that we got the one going around the right side off the property and the one going between the fourth and fifth lot, I guess. And there's something over on the left hand. It seemed to me that there was more underneath there than meets the eye on this particular picture. But when will all that be addressed? And it should be addressed on a preliminary, or that has to be addressed before final? So it's a question more for you at the moment.
Yeah.
My concerns is that stormwater is not properly being addressed, considering with the build around it, which is not their concern, of course.
Right.
Hopefully the county takes that all in case, but it just seemed that when we looked at this previously, there was more stuff going on underground than shown here, unless my memory is just wrong and it couldn't.
Ron, I'd like to bootstrap on just what you're saying too. The common, I don't want to say common, the driveway that's behind the existing townhomes that they enter their garages from, that roadway, I want to talk about a naming of that road because it needs to be named. We need to be able to identify it. But right now there's a negative crown in that road, and it was done, I'm sure, on purpose, because there's a series of half a dozen catch basins that collect that water, and then it goes, as Ron was saying, underneath that fourth lot or in the vicinity of the fourth lot out into that stormwater detention pond, which is just north of the property, which is a different part of the mud district, but it's not Midtown, which is what this is in Midtown. Am I correct, audience?
Yes.
Because it's confusing, but
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
but anyway, things like that, I'll bootstrap on Ron. Should we be addressing those here? I'd hate to see those kind of things get away from us and say we gave tacit approval because that's what was there.
Yeah, this is where we address it. It is already being addressed, such as the road I can bring Dustin up if he's got a second. I'm going to blindside him a little bit, but I can fill him in very quickly. Dustin, if you'll come here for a second.
Morning, Dustin.
And also, their little picture on C1 with the pavement, does that pavement meet our standards?
So I'll let Dustin attest to that as well, and also have the applicant here. Seaside Village, that vacant lot where the drainage easement goes up underneath.
Yeah, they the one that was in front that went up under the house, they rerouted that a couple years ago, about 5 years ago. They rerouted that in front of the condo or in front of them townhouses and went down Park with it down towards the pond.
Okay.
So that's been dealt with. But
But it
the
looks
road-
like that pipe is still active.
Yeah, there is a
because they're going to
stormwater.
continue it. It's the 200 and I can't read this.
Yeah.
234 linear feet of 48-inch high-density polyethylene pipe.
Yeah, there's still a catch basin that's in that road that still goes to that
Okay.
that pond back there. Yes,
All right.
but there is a state stormwater permit for that area.
So that's not accommodating drainage. It's in front of the townhouses.
No, that's the road around back. But
Okay.
they done cores, and I told them they had to level out the road and also add the inch to it because it's only 2 inches of asphalt.
So all of those amenity, all those catch basins, water,
Yeah.
they all have to be adjusted then.
Yes.
And they also have to update their state stormwater permit, which, talking to Dave and Kelly and the applicant, that is requirement will be done as well. So, 'cause Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a blanket state stormwater permit for that whole entire site, correct?
That is correct, and they were all recently completely updated.
Kelly, I don't know that you're being picked up on the speaker system, and we're on YouTube for people. Yeah, can you come to the mic, please? Thank you. And can you give your name and affiliation and address, please?
Yes,
The record.
Kelly Stewart. My address is 889 Hickory Point Court, Charlotte, but my office is right here at Sunset Beach. We are the property managers for the village at Sunset Beach, not for the master association, but for the individual parcels owned by the primary owner, Carolina Dreams Golf. The letter you referred to, Eric Frankovich, is one of the owners of Carolina Dreams Golf, who is the owner of the majority of the vacant lots in the shopping center across the street. We recently went through a process on his behalf to update all of the stormwater ponds in order to deed over those ponds once they were in adequate position for the state, deeded over to the Village at Sunset Beach Master Association. So
Okay.
yes, there is one permit that covers all of the ponds, and that is a very recently issued permit.
Ron's question, in one section it talks about 16 lots, and then in that letter it talks about 15 homes. Are both correct?
So from the Architectural Review Committee standpoint, it is not relevant to us how many homes there are, because that's going to be up to what the planning board will approve and what's on the permit. So I think when the letter was originally drafted, we looked at 15, but whether it's 15 or 16 for the Architectural Review Committee is not important. What's important are setbacks, landscaping, and conformity.
So Chad, if we give approval to this, are we giving tacit approval to allowing 16 family homes?
I'm going to bring the applicant up, representation for that. My understanding is it is 16, and that 16th, that vacant lot that is shown on this with the drainage easement on it, they are aware of that and aware that they have to maintain that drainage easement. So I don't know if y'all have representation. Okay.
And we'll be happy to update that letter if needed. It's not a problem.
Well, we're establishing a record here right
Yes.
now, so
Yeah.
that's
Sure.
substantial. Thank you, Kelly. Please, name and affiliation, please.
My name is Steve Strickland. I'm with the Earthworks Group. My address is 11655 Highway 707, Murrells Inlet, South Carolina.
Welcome.
The plans that have presented are essentially the same plans that had been approved previously for 16 single-family lots. The difference in this particular project, We removed a lot of the additional asphalt parking that was placed around the perimeter of the property, which has reduced the amount of impervious area and therefore reduced a lot of stormwater runoff. The previous plans, they had taken that 48-inch pipe and routed it down the road to the corner and around where the single-family lots were back into the pond, which was going to require a lot of disturbance to the existing road, which would have meant that there would have been a period of construction where the existing residents would have also had to work around the construction. We didn't see a reason to reroute that pipe, but the odd lot that you see that doesn't have a house on it has a more narrow footprint than the other 15 houses. Basically, when we redesigned it, we left the existing stormwater pipe in place and put a drainage easement 10 foot to either side of the center line of the pipe. So that 16th lot, which doesn't show a standard house, all of those houses are a standard width. That one is going to have to be slightly more narrow to fit because of the drainage easement. So
you're not building on a drainage easement.
that is correct. You do not.
But it's
build
going to
on-
be on part of private property.
Correct. Where the center line of the pipe is, there's a drainage easement that extends 10 foot to either side.
Mhm.
On one lot, that 10-foot setback corresponds to the 5-foot side setback. So it's a standard building lot. But on the other side, the drainage easement goes further into it. So it's going to be like a 24-foot building box instead of a 28-foot building box. That's the only difference between that one lot. But at the end of the day, the amount of impervious area has been decreased on this project as it's shown. The amount of open space has been increased because where there previously was a large circle driveway with additional parking, that's been removed and turned into open space with a walking path. So now, instead of having parking spaces and sidewalks right at the back of these buildings or houses, you've got open space. So the overall intent of the project was to maintain the 16 lots, reduce the amount of impervious surfaces, which would thereby reduce the amount of stormwater runoff. We have revised all of the stormwater permits for this project and sent them to the state of North Carolina and talked with them through getting all of the permits adjusted and showing the decrease in impervious surfaces. So that's being processed currently.
You brought up a point.
Yes.
Before I forget, I'll ask you at the podium. You talked about the path, the sidewalk along
Correct.
the back side. I'm showing it as a 4-foot sidewalk on your
Correct.
plans.
Correct.
Question for Chad. Haven't we amended sidewalks in general to be ADA compliant with 5-foot widths?
I think the difference was is if they were required, then it has to be ADA 5-foot requirement. Now, I don't think that they're required to do 5 all the way around because it's definitely technically not required by the UDO. But if the applicant is willing and planning board wants to stipulate that, they can.
But doesn't the municipal code mandate ADA compliancy on sidewalks?
Dustin, does the general code regulate 5 feet requirement on all sidewalks? Okay.
Yeah, 5-foot sidewalks is not a problem.
Okay. Well, and again, it's a technicality, but the plans show 4-foot.
Correct.
And
Yeah, we were matching up the existing sidewalks that were there.
Then a question for Chad.
Okay.
And I guess maybe I should have brought my mug.
should he retain at the podium?
Yeah, I guess. Because that easement's not buildable, is that lot sufficient square footage?
That is up to Dave and Kelly because they're the POA HOA.
I don't know that we have a mandate on lot sizes
We do
in the
not.
mud district.
But I will say this, in other zoning districts, we do have private or public easement on private lots in other places in the town. The actual, and I've looked at this because there was a situation that came up on the beach with another issue is required for easements. Setbacks are required off the property line and not off easements, but you cannot build in that easement
Yes.
as it's recorded.
Which I think you explained very
That is-
clearly.
that is correct.
That's-
Yeah. So as long as Dave and Kelly are okay with it, who represents the management group, that's an approval letter with the applicant. I tend to be good with it.
A question, and for you, sir, because it says the Earthworks Group, which you represent on behalf of Seaside Townhomes. I get confused, and that's not difficult at my age, but I get confused, and I'm sure our citizens can get confused when they read our documents. The Mud District is unique. It's so different than any in its format, in its formulation, and its requirements than any of our other zoning districts within the town. But I know that I get confused. People have come to me confused about the Mud District, which is the area we call the Village at Sunset Beach. And that's the entire district over there, which has 5 precincts that are a part of that MU Mud District. We also have, and I'm saying this really for the record, for the benefit of citizens that might be YouTubing in and in our audience, that's not to be confused with the mainland mixed-use MB2 areas, which is also referred to as a mud district. But the Village at Sunset Beach is a very unique, contiguous piece of property within our town, which was set up with the 5 precincts for very specific reasons, for variety of architecture, for commonality of people being able to walk from residences into businesses, commercial, to have different sidewalk looks, to have different building looks. And I support it 100%. But to refer to it on the applicant overview as on behalf of Seaside Townhomes, I then get confused with Dock Street Townhomes, which is also in the Brunswick County map. It shows the townhomes that are out in front of these 16 lots as being Dock Street Townhomes. But I know that a lot of us refer to it as the Seaside Townhomes. So I don't really know where this goes. I'm not smart enough to be able to change the wording in it. But I think we need to recognize that we've created a lot of different terminologies for a lot of different things. And this one section is a part of Midtown Precinct. And the area behind it is not a part of this discussion here, but that is Sea Trail Park, which is the stormwater detention areas. And I know there's some plans for that in the future. But I think we've done a very good job of not only confusing the chair here, but I think some of our citizens.
Well, I can clarify that for the record as well. If you look on GIS and you go to this property and click on it and you look at ownership representation LLC, it does say Seaside Townhomes. So technically that is the owner of the property.
Okay.
And that's where that came from, and that's where all that terminology comes from for me.
All right. Never mind. I thought it was important to bring that point out.
So just a clarification of mine, the passenger vehicle pavement section is going to be changed. The cross section on C1.
We will be adding another overlay of asphalt to the existing base and asphalt that's there to meet the town's requirements.
And they will be naming the road as well.
Right.
They'll have to.
So the 6-inch base is correct? And
Yes.
but it needs 2 instead of 1.5.
Yes.
So the 1.5 is changing to 2 on this drawing.
Well, this is incorrect.
Right. So I'm making sure in my mind I know what's changing. The sidewalk is changing to 5 foot, and on this cross section is changing.
To an inch. They have 2 now. With our ordinance is 2.5.
You're going to add an inch.
Don't add
So
an inch.
it says here 1.5 inch on this drawing.
Yeah, they're going
So
to
it's
add.
going to change to 2.5 inch.
Yes.
Okay. That's
Well,
what.
in reality, unless you're going to mill up what's there and start over again, in the center, if we do require a positive instead of a negative crown in the road, you're going to be putting 6 inches of asphalt in the center of that.
We will have to
Base of.
install the asphalt over the existing because all of the townhouses that are currently there are sloped to grade toward the existing catch basins.
Yes.
So we won't change the geometry of the road. We're adding an overlay to basically smooth it out and strengthen the road. You would not be able.
So you're not changing the crown in the road then?
Correct. If you try to change the crown in the road, it's going to create a larger disturbance.
Yes.
For everybody that's there. And that's what we're trying to avoid. When we did the planning for this, we were trying to minimize the amount of disturbance and construction that was necessary because frankly, what's there works pretty good. And so changing, making a whole bunch of changes did not appear to be necessary.
How do you feel about that, Dustin?
Yeah, because with the catch basins they have back there, they're already, that's the way they designed it, so the water would flow towards them catch basins and go out into the pond. And they tried to put a crown, then they had to change the whole catch basins, the whole system around to allow.
Where there might be some adjustments to the catch basin
You'll raise-
frame and cover.
Yes.
Yeah, you'll just adjust the frames.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's just going to be sealer and then an overlay of 1 inch?
No, it'd be asphalt, 9.5.
I don't know that they'll even put a sealer. They'll put a tack coat down and then
Yeah.
put an inch
Not
of surface
chip seal.
course.
No, they'll actually put asphalt down. They'll put a tack coat down, then they put it over a
Right. But they
paper.
don't need the chip seal. There's not a lot of spider cracking underneath it.
Right. No.
No, it is pretty
Asphalt.
stable.
Yeah.
We do fire training in there all the time, and
Right, but
it's a stable
Because
road.
if it's all spider cracked, the overlay ain't going to last either. So without chip sealing. 'Cause
You can do a membrane over it. We've done before a geotech fabric that you can lay over the top of the what they call alligator. You can do
But
that.
that's up to the town to, as that transition is going through, for you to accept that road.
Yeah,
That
that's-
isn't a planning board
no.
Okay.
issue, I don't think. It's
That's
falls
up to
on you.
them. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board? Ron, anything else?
No, I guess. No, thank you.
Chad, how do we get into the record the 5-foot sidewalk? Do we,
Do you want to make a motion?
okay,
With approving
if that's appropriate.
They've already agreed that it's not a problem.
The parking, and I'm sorry, I should have asked this question when you were at the podium. Could you resume, please? I'm impressed by the architectural renderings for the various models.
Yeah.
Um,
The parking, there will be 2 parking places in front of each unit, plus the parking inside of the garage.
Okay, there seems to be 2 units, the Osprey, that do not have a garage unless the garage is hidden from the A or B side that I'm looking at in the rendering.
I would need to go back and look at the plans.
Okay, all the other ones show nice garages in the
Correct.
front with a short driveway. It's
The builder is telling me they all have garages.
okay, and that's reasonable. They're just not in the view that I'm looking at, the front A and B side view. But,
Yes.
all right,
All right.
that answers that question. I believe I do not have any more questions. And seeing how the board doesn't have any more, I'd like to entertain or make a motion that we accept the preliminary plat submission for Seaside Village Single Family, with the proviso that the sidewalk shown on the north side, rear of the 16 lots, will be revised to a 5-foot width from the 4-foot width shown. Can we have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is so passed. Chad, anything else we need to do from a housekeeping standpoint to complete that process? Okay, thank you for a nice package.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to our second item under new business, Birdwatch Phase 2 Final Plat. Chad, can you give us some background on that, please?
Sure. I think back in August or September, you approved phase 1, which was lots 1 through 13. This is approving the second phase of that, which is lots 1 through 49. 14 through 49. Thank you. Riptide Builders, applicant on behalf of Sunrise Corp Development owner, is requesting a final plat for phase 2 of Birdwatch. The final plat will grant permission to construct and operate lots 14 through 49 for single-family residential units in the Sea Trail community. It's pretty straightforward. You have the final plat in front of you. Dustin went out and, in my absence, to look at the sidewalks, street signs, everything looked good. I have approvals from Brunswick County. I think from Brunswick County Water and Sewer, I think they're finalizing everything for the stormwater. I think they have approval. They're waiting on the phone call in return to accept it and everything, but everything is good to go. I have the applicant and the engineer of the project here. If you have any questions for me or them.
I have a couple, but I'll
So
step aside for the rest of the board to
The additional
address.
comments on the end here. So the site inspection was done,
The site inspection was done.
and Dustin got his core samples?
Yes,
Okay.
we're good.
And Dustin, you're saying they are acceptable? Dustin is nodding affirmative. Sybil, any specific comments on the
It looks like everything was
Birdwatch
correct.
package? Okay. I have a comment, or at least a question. And if somebody from Riptide might come to the podium, introduce themselves, I would like to ask the question on the plan.
Not a problem. Todd Rademacher, Riptide Builders, 279 Clubhouse Road here in Sunset Beach.
Welcome, Todd.
Thank you.
And this happens, well, we're talking here now about lots 14 through 49. I'm going to call it a frontage road, but I think you know what I mean. It's a private right-of-way. One's called Lunar Drive. The other one is Sunridge Drive. The way they're shown on the plans, it appears that it's contiguous with Clubhouse Road, but it's not.
Correct.
And so it's not shown here. Well, here it shows it as a 34-foot private right-of-way.
Correct.
The footprint of the road, the edge of curb near the homes to the edge of curb near Clubhouse Boulevard is much wider than that.
Correct.
And explain.
So yes, the two right-of-ways actually adjoin each other. So when you look at it on the final plat, it looks like it's just a large swath of right-of-way. But in actuality, with the pavement and the curbing completed, that section is roughly, I don't know, between the pavement and the curbing, about 21 and a half feet. And then you'll have a grass median strip, sidewalks, and 2 rows of street trees between the actual Lunar Drive, as it were, and Clubhouse Road. So there's a good swath of open green
There's
space.
a sidewalk in there too, right?
And there is a
Maybe you said that.
5 foot wide ADA compliant sidewalk in there
Yes.
as well.
Pete, I think this mirrors what's very much what runs along the Jones course, hole number 1. That's further down below the clubhouse.
Yes, and I'm not objecting to it. What I'm saying is it's not what's shown, and this is a final plat approval.
Yeah, the
It's
final
not-
plat just shows the right of way widths, not the actual details of.
Yeah, but it can't fit in a 34-foot right-of-way. It's 23 foot of road and 27 foot of grass, sidewalk, trees, getting out to Clubhouse Road. So it's a different.
Well, some of the improvements are within the Clubhouse Road right away, and some of the improvements are within the Lunar Drive and Sunridge Road right away.
But you haven't reduced the existing Clubhouse Road width.
No, we have not.
Okay. All right.
No, so there's street trees and sidewalks are inside. Some of those are inside the right of way of Clubhouse Road.
by lot, or I'll call it common area number 3, it's between lots 29 and 30, and I don't expect
Okay,
you to
yep.
have a
Nope,
you
I know exactly what
perfect.
you're talking about.
It talks about a sign and landscaping easement, 201 square feet, and it also talks about a mailbox kiosk.
Correct.
There is the pavement is in right there. In fact, it seems like the surface course is in there as well.
Yes, we put the final pavement in there.
Is there no sign cut out then, or will you cut
The
it out?
sign cutout is coming after the fact.
Okay.
That will be.
What is the sign?
It is roughly the size of this podium. It's just a small obelisk, if you will.
What does it say? Do not enter, stay away? Or
It'll have
is it an advertisement.
It'll
for
have
the
a
community?
BW on it, black metal letters, very similar to what we've done in some of our other projects there in that area. And it'll be out of a corresponding brick that you see throughout the community. It'll be landscaped around it, roughly 10 feet wide. If you look at the drawings in the map, that's what it kind of scales out to.
Okay.
But it was easier easier and a better product at the end, just to pave it a straight pavement and then come back and cut the circle out. But obviously we can't put a sign in until we get a separate sign permit. So
The mailbox kiosk for right there in the common area
Correct.
3,
Mhm.
is that just for the homes along Lunar Drive, or is
No.
it for the people across the
it's
street?
for all 49 lots. That's as
Okay, so it's
required
1
by the
through
postals.
13 as well.
Yes, 1 through 49 will all have individual kiosks. There's actually a couple extra slots just due to the ordering, and then there's 4 package slots for all the homeowners. Those mailboxes are currently sitting at our storage facility, and once some of the construction is completed, so they don't get beat up, we'll install them on site prior to getting a certificate of occupancy on any of the homes in lots 1 through 13.
And there'll be designated parking spots there for the mailbox
That is
kiosk
correct.
area.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And Chad, I don't know that it's an appropriate time. I was going to ask what else is going in that common area 3, because there's nothing said here. But stop me if that's not something that we're
I mean, you
privy
can't
to discuss.
you can't base the approval on it. You can certainly ask the applicant in generality what's going else in there. The requirements as far as that is just, the preliminary plat, that's where the mailbox kiosk was.
Mhm.
You can use common areas for the subdivision. You can install it's open space.
So I can address that a little
Please.
bit. We're
Thank you.
We're
Todd.
still investigating exactly what we want to do on all the common areas. We included them in our request for addresses, so they would be addressed in case down the road we ever wanted to do anything substantial, I guess, for lack of better words, for an improvement. But more than likely, what you're talking about is passive open space, maybe some benches, potentially some, an area, picnic tables, things of that nature that just can be enjoyed by the community members.
Well, I'm
But-
sure you'd be motivated to make it nice, because that's the
Oh,
value.
certainly.
increases the
There'll be
value.
additional
curb
landscaping
appeal.
that goes there and all that other kind of good stuff.
Well, I learned more about BUA, built upon area, than I ever, I guess, cared to know, reading through 40 pages of stuff here. And I also, Chad, the high and low density under the stormwater permit, it becomes very confusing. And I can appreciate the fact that part of bird watch is high density.
Correct.
And part of it is low density.
Yes,
But it's all really a part of the same stormwater permit,
correct.
which also commingles in with a stormwater control measures, let's call it,
Mhm.
for Eastwood Bluffs.
Kind of, yes.
I mean, there's a commonality of stormwater
There's a
basins.
shared pond,
Okay.
but there's 2 separate forebays, as it were. There's a forebay that controls the stormwater up at Eastwood
Yes.
Bluff Townhomes, and then there was a new forebay that was installed
You've
for
built.
the birdwatch community. Yes,
You just
yes.
built that. Yes,
Yep,
I
correct.
saw that. Can you explain the difference between high and low density and how it affects birdwatch, or is this going to take us into tomorrow?
This will get us a little bit into the weeds, but in
Well, the
simple
Cliff
terms,
Notes version.
the low density section is where you're going to see water being transported to the pond via more open swales
Yes.
and things of that nature. And the high density portions, and really the low density section is Duxbury Court, in that area.
Right.
And if you go
Right.
out there, you'll actually see the sidewalk, in the plans was raised up about, I don't know, 6 to 8 inches. The water is sloped towards the pond. It goes underneath the sidewalk and then into a grass swale so the water can slow down. The sediment can drop out before it gets into a catch basin and makes its way out to the pond. Where in the other sections of, say, Lunar
Okay,
Drive.
Duxbury Court, now I understand what you're talking about.
Sorry.
There's 6 lots that are in there. That'll be
Correct.
ground surface swales that'll carry it into
Correct.
that stormwater
Correct.
pond.
Correct.
So we don't get in the weeds too much. The high and low density required for state stormwater regarding to this, now, planning and zoning, we really look at the density per property as it's being looked at overall is when the preliminary is looked at. So you might have some overlap with state stormwater, stuff like that. When you look at density for Eastwood Bluffs, you look at density for Birdwatch, you look at density for other projects, you look at density for the project when we look at planning and zoning and open space
Yes.
versus the carryover.
And I see that's exhaustive in here under the stormwater permit. It's got square footage of each lot. and
Correct.
it tallies them. And I understand that.
Yeah.
I don't want,
Okay.
for
That's
the record, I
my
don't wanna
question's been
confuse-
answered.
Yeah.
Okay. No problem.
One last curiosity. How does lots 48 and 49, how does the owner access that? Do they come off of Eastwood Park Road, off of Clubhouse Road,
Lot 48 will come off of, that's Lunar Drive.
Lunar Drive?
Lunar Drive.
Okay.
And lot 49 comes off of Eastwood Landing.
And I've already addressed them according so as well.
Okay. So there'll be a driveway coming off of Eastwood Park Road.
Yeah,
Of course, I
Eastwood
see
Park.
Eastwood Landing on here as well.
Yes.
And that house actually gets pushed pondward or towards the green as you're facing.
Yeah, it's got the
So
rear
the
setback
driveway,
on
the
that
driveway is
very narrow.
correct.
It's-
The driveway is pushed as far down as you can because up there towards the actual intersection, you've got a lot of landscaping, you've got a sign, easement area up there, that kind of stuff.
and you've got sight distances and things like that that are important.
Correct.
for
So the
pulling
house
in and
is
out.
slid all the way to the down Eastwood Landing Road.
All right. I have no further questions. Ron, anything else you need to
Nope. I'm
discuss? Sybil?
No.
I'd like to make a motion that, and I don't think we talked about anything that would be an add-on to this, did we? I don't think we did. It's confusing with 4 different new business items. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the final plat for Birdwatch Phase 2, lots 14 through 49, as submitted by the applicant dated January 6, 2022.
I so move.
Okay, a
good.
second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous?
Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the clarifications and the education. All right, the third item of new business, Sanctuary Final Plat Phase 1. Chad, if you could give us some background on that, please.
Sure. This is Bill Clark Homes of Wilmington LLC, or Bill Clark Homes in general. Applicant on behalf of LHH Holdings, owner, is requesting the final plat approval for Phase 1 of the sanctuary at Angels Trace. The final plat approval will grant permission to construct and operate lots 12 through 44, 55 through 60, 93 through 105, and 127 through 135 for single-family residential units. The subject property is total is about 89.34 acres in size and may be further identified by Brunswick County parcel listed in your staff report. And I was not here for the preliminary plat. I've worked with,
Neither was I.
yeah, so I've worked with Landon and Bill Clark and Paramount Engineering, who is the engineering firm representing Bill Clark on this. I do have a representation from the engineering firm and Landon Weaver with Bill Clark in the audience if you have any questions for him. I think the biggest question I have to help the board moving forward is, this is Phase 1 of how many phases, Landon?
Who knows?
Yeah, if I can get you to come up real quick.
It's pretty worthwhile. Just
Can you introduce yourself for the YouTube people, please?
Landon Weaver with Bill Clark Homes. So it's a large project. It's approximately 150 acres in total. I can't remember exactly how many phases, but it's a long-term project. And Phase 1 is just getting in the door. We have our main boulevard coming in the project with a couple roundabouts. We've got our and working with Chad. We've got our signage kind of honed in. We're getting our engineers to draw those structures right now to submit for permitting on those as soon as we get recorded. And our amenity center, we're getting our engineering drawings done on that as well right now, so we could submit our facilities for the amenities once we get recorded as
And
well.
just for the record, the amenity site, the planning board already approved
Yes.
earlier, earlier this year, last year in 2021.
I remember that, yes.
So site engineering is done, but the plumbing, mechanical, electrical drawings for the structures, that's what we're doing right now. And as soon as we get those finished up, we'll submit those for permit as well, get going.
A couple questions. Chad, I'm going to address this to you, but if you could stay,
Yes.
please. We have gone through a pretty exhausting process with our resiliency for coastal community program, if you will, where we're coming up with potential projects for grants. And a big part of that has been a GIS study of 100-year, 500-year floodplain areas. I note in the Sanctuary Final Plat Phase 1 package that it talks about the whole area of the sanctuary not being within a floodplain. Or at least when it talks about floodplain, it's not AE or VE, it's not 100-year, it has an X, which to me says it's not a floodplain.
Correct.
I note from our resiliency plan that Moffett Nichols has put together, at least with their GIS, it shows the Calabash Creek directly adjacent to the north side of that property. And they, through their color codes, are implying that that's within the 100-year floodplain. Now, what I don't know is how tall the banks are there as to where that floodplain would crest along the slope as it enters into the project. But for the record, I am assuming that we've looked at the floodplain characteristics, if you will.
Yeah, I'm looking at them right now.
And I don't know what because I don't have a grading plan here. I don't know what the grades are, particularly along lots, say 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
Around the half moon kind of in there.
Yes,
That
yes.
back up to it.
Yes.
They're elevated a little bit more than the other side of the creek.
Okay.
I think the other side is a little bit lower than our side, and we put additional fill in there to get everything to run to the stormwater ponds before they just run out to the creek as well. So we've built that area up. It naturally drains from the commercial areas and drained it to Calabash Creek from there.
Yeah,
so we naturally
there's
had
two
to
5-foot culverts that go underneath
it's pretty,
Seaside Road right there. So the velocity, the volume must be highly anticipated.
Yeah, I think it comes all the way up from Georgetown and comes around by Sunset Ridge, the community we developed right there, and comes down and comes through.
Yes.
But we've added some additional safeguards by putting fill in there. I think there's some areas that have probably 8 to 10 feet of fill additional than what was there originally, so we could grade it back toward the stormwater ponds, because you got to treat it before you release it out into the creeks and
Now,
streams.
what you might be referring to, Pete, is there is a floodway through there, but that will not that is on the other side of Angels Trace Road, and that will not come into play until your final couple phases. 2 or 3.
Subsequent phases.
Yep.
Yeah,
And I
Well,
think that's where the washout is on Angels Trace Road, probably right there as well.
that's
So,
right.
And I think,
Okay.
I think part of the
That's not. It's Angels. It is Angels Trace Road.
Angels
You're right.
Trace,
You're
yeah.
right.
And I
Yes,
think
you're right.
part of the agreement
Okay.
was to fix Angels Trace Road when you get into part of the final plats. Ron can help me with that because he was here, and Civil. That was part of the agreement on the preliminary plat. So I've been told to fix the washout once you get into the final
Yeah,
phases of
I
that.
know exactly what you're talking about.
It'll be beefed up. Originally I think there was some old corrugated pipe with some flashboard risers, just some old, quick down and dirty stuff. We're gonna have some more concrete structures.
So,
Literally concrete
since
structures.
I'm going to get into the road again,
Ron.
Yeah.
let me make this picture.
Mhm.
Angel Trace Road is way over here,
Yeah,
right?
it's way over there. Way over there.
Okay.
That's right.
It's right there.
Are these two roads are basically connecting to other sections?
So it'll come in, I believe those two roads come in and they'll connect, and then it goes out to another
So
connection.
I guess 2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't put a traffic circle here? You did not.
We do have one there, and we do have one up front.
Yeah, I see.
It's within the
So
right
that
of way.
little dot is, you're actually putting a traffic circle there,
There's
roundabout.
there's two. So when you come in off of 904,
Well, I'm talking about this spot here.
yeah, that's in there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's in there, and there's one right
There's
here
your
as
two
well.
circles right there.
And there's one up front right here as well.
Okay.
And the roundabout.
So I was just making, I'm just,
In the roundabout.
So
we-
roundabout.
now maybe my eyes are just not good enough to read that, I guess. That,
It
just that
shows-
dot there.
It shows the right
I
of
didn't
way.
actually get this one. I should have gotten this.
I'll make
picture.
you, I got that
Because it
through,
actually shows it here.
that
Yeah,
came,
and so this is just
that came
depicting,
unexpectedly.
Right of way. It
Right.
doesn't depict actual
Okay.
curb and gutter.
Well, we looked at that first roundabout at
Thank
the
you.
amenity center, didn't we? Wasn't that shown in
Okay.
front of the amenity center when that
Correct.
came before the planning board?
Yeah, and just to be clear, that everything is installed pertaining to this final plat. Does not mean, when those roundabouts have, now if he brought lots north of where that road was, he would have to install roads pertaining to the lots that he's wanting to record. But the plat that is seen before you with the houses and the lots on it, everything is installed on site pertaining to this plat itself. So there are roads that will connect in there, and he might have done some extra paving in there, but what he's required to do is pave and show on site what is actually on the ground outside.
And what Chad's speaking to, we put additional, like when you come in the project on the right and the left, we've done most all the mass grading in those areas, some utilities for additional phases that are in there as well.
Right.
So
Crosswalks, Chad, I don't know if they should be shown. If I'm looking here at approving a final plat phase one, and there are roads within that footprint of phase one, there are certainly areas where crosswalks are appropriate. This is a quite substantial subdivision.
correct.
And so the foot traffic is going to be, particularly going towards the amenity center, is going to be,
We got 6 foot sidewalks, not even 5.
well, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
So,
But
on that main boulevard, and it's on both sides of the road. I don't think that was required, but that's something that we wanted to do as well.
When you look at final plats as far as crosswalk, some planners require them, some planners don't on the final. They are installed per the preliminary plat, which is how we look at it when
Okay.
things are installed.
all right,
But as far as just this is a final checklist for recording purposes, easements and right of ways and names are important. Crosswalks, as long as they're installed per the preliminary plat, we're good, because I did look at that.
But Pete, yes, we did. I mean, we see the same thing you do. It's going to be a hopefully well used area for folks walking, going back and forth, through different sections to the amenity.
and coming into the area we just talked about, back towards
The
Food
Frank-
Lion and
Miss Crankovich and Kelly and David, they were instrumental in connecting it through, so there's access. When we did the plans for the amenity center, we had some golf cart parking. We think there's going to be a big tie between our community and this commercial, and I think it's going to benefit the town tremendously. I think it's going to bring good residents.
Okay, I agree. Any other questions?
Two more. One
Okay,
for
please.
Chad. On packet page 150, number 6 at the bottom. Is your answer to that one about the same as the last one? Brunswick County is like
Yes.
about ready to give that, so
No,
there's no issue on the water and sewer
No.
service to these.
Nope, there's no issue on any of
assume
that.
that was
I have
right.
approvals. And the reason why that says that for, bird watching this one is because I've been out due to some,
Got it.
I think they signed the plat yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Dustin, that's why I have Dustin here on my behalf. He's looked at it. He went out there and looked at
And
it.
likewise, Dustin's done the site inspections.
Correct.
And that's all good.
I was surprised that you put in the final inch of asphalt there already.
Yeah,
That's-
I mean, if you think about it, that main corridor, there's not going to be there's going to be traffic.
Mhm.
There are going to be trucks, different things while we build the home, but there's not going to be a lot of on and offs. And, we just like to show the folks what they're going to have. And if anything's damaged in the process, we're managing, we're the developer and the builder. We take care of everything. If we damage anything, it'll be fixed. We just want to finish it up, polish it off.
You're not looking immediately for these to be town-maintained roads anyway. They're private
No,
roads.
they're private roads. That's correct. We've got our landscaper ready to start putting landscaping in for the berm, and all the medians and all these things. Some of the plants, just to let you know, we won't put all the plants in more than likely until probably March, there, because there's some plants that we're going to be installing that don't do well with the cold. But we'll be installing most of the landscaping coming up here in short order.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
And, wait, no,
Oh, I'm sorry.
one question, you're
Sorry,
going
Ron.
to this one.
Yep.
Angel Trace Road,
Yes.
okay, on Exhibit A. Now, these covenants are for the whole project, right? Not by phase.
Correct.
So eventually the whole association is everything.
Correct.
So this is the same covenants for everybody.
And those are draft covenants. We hadn't recorded them yet.
Okay.
We got to record the map and
So Article 5, Maintenance, 5.1, Association Responsibility, you nicely call out in paragraph C that all private streets, including any asphalt repairs, situated in common elements, are the association's responsibility after the clearance gone.
Correct.
Okay? But because you have this easement in Exhibit A to Angel's Trace, which extends from the intersection of northern property lines, parcel 1 and 2, et cetera, et cetera. Now, my understanding of the law is because this property has an unrestricted easement to that road, you're also responsible for maintenance of the easement.
I think it would fall on whoever the owners are of that, with the share of the people who use it as well. So we're going to go in when we go in, we're going to fix the
I
culvert.
understand that. All I'm saying
pave
is
it.
I think for clarity's sake,
Mm-hmm.
that paragraph 5.1C should also refer to that easement as part of the association's responsibility.
Well, we would be willing to put some level of responsibility. I don't think it needs to be the whole level of responsibility. We merely have an easement over that property. We don't own it. There will be other people that will use it. If anybody uses it in the future, it needs to be done on a pro rata share at minimum. I would imagine. So, for example, if somebody comes in here and develops on the other side of Calabash Creek, and they're going to Georgetown, everybody in the brother's going to use it. The town, everybody else. There may be 600 homes up there, and they're utilizing that
More.
area. They need to fund that as well. There needs to be some kind of discussion.
How do you, he brings up a point.
Because
How do
I
you
live in exactly
monitor
the
that?
situation you described.
Yeah.
And because of that, nothing gets done.
Well, there's
So-
going to be some responsibility on that. If nobody else is using it and they're the only ones using it, yes. But if somebody comes in, and we'll discuss it with our attorneys, but I see your position, and
Because it's like legally, and well, according to our attorney,
mhm.
legally, an owner of a private road that grants an unrestricted easement, anyone using the easement is responsible for maintaining the easement.
Correct.
I agree with you saying when there's a bunch of people who are using their easement, they should share.
Correct.
But when nothing is written down, no one agrees on their share. They're going to say there's a 5-home development that uses that piece.
Right.
And how many homes you guys got in the end?
360 some, I think.
So
something like
someone
that.
could claim,
And I agree. but
we
that's
take
down the
5
road.
out of 364.
Yeah.
And somebody says, no, because we only got 150 homes built now. So now you're 5. When none of this is written, it's a
It's not written. I see what he's saying.
sorry. When nothing is written down, there will never be any understanding of what people's responsibility is.
What the expectation is, I understand. And
My-
it's down,
most people-
it's down the road.
Most people's expectation is I don't need to pay nothing.
Well, that just usually
Well-
nobody wants to pay anything.
Right.
Yeah.
So I see your point.
hmm
My original thing was say, can you just add to C that it includes that easement?
I think
But
that
what
we
you're
can do
saying,
that. I don't.
you want to include your prorated share of that easement.
Yes.
And I agree that would be
Yeah.
fine. But I think the people that buy into this, whether they read the covenants or not, and they don't, of course, until a dispute comes up and that, say that road falls apart and then everybody's throwing up their arms, right,
Right.
and getting a special assessment. That if they would be wise to include something there that the homeowners who purchase this know they have some sort of responsibility to that chunk of roadway.
Ron, that's a great point. It's down the road, but I think we can
Right.
go ahead and we can address that before we record it. We'll discuss it with our attorneys and make sure.
Right. I don't
That,
want to overburden your people. Right. I
No,
agree with that.
no. But
Right.
when we represent when we represent and sell, they will understand that they have that access
Right. I
through
mean, you
there
give
and
them-
responsibility.
Right. I know you give them,
Yeah.
you'll give them the covenants, and half the
Right.
people don't read them and don't understand them.
Yeah.
But at least later, when a dispute comes up, at least something was written down.
Absolutely.
It says you had some share, fairly, whatever.
That's a good point.
Well, but you're going to share
Well
that
taken.
with everybody, all 382
Yeah, they all go
Correct.
on
The
the
cost will
even
be
even
level
though they're not going to
across.
be using Angel Trace Road.
They may.
Well,
That's
not very often.
Yeah.
It's
I think most of them are going to be coming through here through the commercial.
Yeah.
Honestly, to tell you on the
but
street.
once
But
you
yeah,
have the easement, you have
that's right.
right, and you can. So
do we have the latitude
thank you.
to
Yeah.
address covenants within a?
No.
I don't think so legally, but I mean that's your prerogative. I can tell you though, we're going to look into it because Ron makes a good point, and from a longevity standpoint, it does make sense to address
I mean,
that.
clearly,
We'll-
like-
before we record.
Now
them,
you're going to fix
we'll
the
look
road up
into
nice and say that's great. But
Yeah.
let's say another Florence comes through and that whole plate gets washed out again, and you're still there building. You're in phase 3 of 6 or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Now you know, just like Sunset Lakes, everybody's going to be in an uproar. What do
Right.
we do now? Who pays for this? I don't want to pay for it.
Well,
You pay for
Well, we're not going to fix it till we get there. To
Every-
make sure the life of it is as long as
Right.
possible too.
Every community has the same, I guess, consternation. And
Yeah.
and I had a point here I was going to bring to Todd before, but it has to do with the various frontage roads at Birdwatch. There's some people who will never use a frontage road because they live on the other side of the street.
Right.
But if the repairs have to take place to Lunar, let's say, everybody's going to be assessed it, all 49 lots. So I don't know that we can. I think you're making an excellent point publicly, which puts the developer's conscience on notice. But
They're reputable.
It's
so
a
they're going to
welcome-
try to do the right thing.
yes.
It's welcome comment too.
Yeah,
Right.
when you get
Well-
the covenants and restrictions, they're allowed to be more restrictive than they are. We
Yeah,
just
I
cannot
mean, like
be
I say,
less
they
restrictive
put in
than
a
us.
short-term rental restriction in there.
And
Which is great.
Right.
I mean, you can do a subdivision without any covenants and restrictions
Right.
if you.
We've been doing it a while.
Yeah.
We've seen some of those
Yeah.
here and there. You know, some of those things covenants and restrictions too are evolving documents sometimes, and that's
Right.
why we keep the declarant rights till we're gone, so we can address some of those things that may come up because nobody can see everything.
Sure.
You know,
And you learn on every development you
absolutely.
participate in.
We
so-
try to absolutely. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any
Good
other
point, Ron.
questions for the applicant?
Not for the applicant, no.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments regarding
Well,
this
I think
final plat?
Ron opened a can of worms with the covenants and everything, but I don't know that it's the town's place to govern them. But I see, so I mean, like where I live, there are lots of issues where people don't follow the covenants, and being a small community, we can't afford a lawyer. We can't take them to court. So where do you draw the line? So why we can't do anything about it? Why are we requiring it of bigger developments?
Well, that's why I asked the question of,
Yeah.
of staff.
I just think
Where's
it's
our latitude?
it's, but I don't know that it's under our purview.
All right, point publicly well made. Thank you. Any other comments regarding our transaction here with the sanctuary final plat phase 1 approval?
Yeah.
Make a motion that we approve the January 2nd, 2022 final plat submitted by the applicant for the sanctuary.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So approved. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, fourth item, Article 11, sign regulations, UDO text amendment. And Chad, if you could give us some background on this, please.
Sure. This is a citizen-initiated text amendment that the applicant includes a modification to the Town of Sunset Beach Unified Development Ordinance regarding the expanding sign regulations in residential zoning districts. The public notice for this text amendment has been published and ran through the newspaper at least one cycle. The planning board can respectively make a motion to recommend approval or denial of this text amendment to town council at the next available meeting. Landon Weaver and Paramount Engineering on behalf of Bill Clark Holmes has submitted a complete application for to the town of Sunset Beach to propose additional sign regulations to allow in residential zoning districts in the town of Sunset Beach. This would be a modification to Article 11, sign regulations, Section 11.8, residential zoning district sign regulations. It is to allow one additional monument sign may be permitted in accordance with size and landscaping requirements prohibited herein, and that's regarding to the additional language in A, with the amenity and recreational area of a subdivision or planned community. In no case shall any one subdivision or planned community have more than one such monument sign. And you look at subsection A2, permitted monument signs may be illuminated by external or silhouette lighting only. External lighting fixtures shall not cast light or glare in any direction other than the elements of the sign. Such lighting shall be placed as to provide even illumination to the signage and to avoid hot spot and dark spot areas in signage. You do have a consistency statement before you. You do have supplement documentation such as the application, email correspondence between the applicant and I. Examples of the signs that they have submitted. This is not an example of what the sign may or may not look like. And I do have the applicant and the engineer in place.
Chad, I've got a question for staff.
Sure.
We're talking about, I want to talk about the 64 square foot,
Sure.
6 foot high, 14 foot wide.
Okay.
But I'll put a comment there and ask another question first.
Sure.
We're limiting it to one additional monument sign.
Correct.
I think the sanctuary is probably, well, no, it's not unique. There are other larger subdivision potentials here within our ETJ and municipal area. But if you had a pool area in one part of the community and you had a rec center, amenity center in another part, they may want to. And if the idea or the purpose is to identify what that facility is, which I assume it is, then I don't know why we're limiting it. However, signs are very controversial. However, within a residential subdivision, those are the people that are going to have to look at the sign that are putting the sign in. And I'm sure that Bill Clark Homes wants to make those signs look nice because it enhances the property values and the curb appeal to all the homes. So I'd like to talk with the planning board about whether we want to limit it to one or not.
Well, already in Sea Trail, they have more than one.
Well, but they have entrance signs is really what they're talking about. And plus they came in long before our UDO was restricting items.
Okay.
It's just like the Sea Trail signs are much larger than 64 square feet.
Well, I understand the entrance ones. I'm talking about the ones inside the property.
I
I mean, like they have
back center.
the members clubhouse, the two different pools. There's a lot going in there that needs signage.
They've grandfathered in as to what they look like right now. If they want to put another one in, or change that sign, change the shape or size, or more than 50% of that sign, they would have to fall under the new regulations that we are making. Right now, they would not be allowed to put a new sign in.
Yeah.
And they would have to cease that sign if they went in and changed it substantially.
Didn't they just put one up on the sales office?
Yes, but that was if I remember correctly, that was a existing modification to an existing sign. So they fell into that non-conformity, not exchange.
Let's talk about the 6 foot high by 14 foot wide. I think we've created a confusing point here where we talk about maximum not to exceed 64 square feet. Then we talk about 14 foot high by 6 foot, 14 foot wide by 6 foot high. I agree that the sign probably shouldn't be any taller than 6 feet. I agree that the sign probably shouldn't be any wider than 14 foot. However, if you took the limits of both height and width, that would be 84 square feet, not 64 square feet. And I didn't know if this was a typo. This is an existing ordinance that we have, 64 square feet. But it's dealing with entrance signs. It's not dealing with internal residential signs. And that's where we're making a transition here. I think we're just creating a confusion. If 6 foot is the maximum height that we want, for aesthetic reasons, and 14 foot is the size we want for aesthetic reasons, then I don't think we need to state 64 square feet.
That is up to you. If you want to make the sign area 84 square feet, you're more than happy to. When I look at signage, and I look at the advertising part of the signage, it's two different things.
Yeah, but this is talking about a monument sign. That means total. It doesn't mean, you could write nothing on it and it would still can't be any taller than 6 feet. And it isn't just the portion that says Sea Trail or Sanctuary.
So
it's the whole deal.
If they left it blank, it could be 84 square feet maximum.
No, it can't. It can be 64 square feet according to our existing ordinance
That
at the
is-
entrance.
That is for lettering. I don't know, it's confusing.
I'm going
I
to
know when you
disagree.
read it.
It says a ground mounted sign. It doesn't say lettering.
Okay. If we need to clarify that, we can. When I look at it as the planner, if you constructed a blank sign, concrete, monument, whatever, it could be 84 square feet blank.
Well, I assume
And
the
then-
entrance signs, the north and south entrances, well, the north and, well, the entrances of Sea Trail that are being bricked over. I like the looks of them,
Yep.
and I think most people in Sea Trail do. I don't live in Sea Trail. However, they are in violation because they are bigger than 64 square feet.
So technically, if you look at the total overall signage, you take the word Sea Trail off. It's a great example. You take Sea Trail off of those, you look at the signs, it is bigger than what would be allowed by
Well,
our
it's taller than
standards.
6 foot, and it's bigger than 14
It
foot
would-
wide.
it would not be allowed by our standards of the UDO today. Now, when it
But
was
it's allowed
constructed-
now because it is not, it grandfathered in. All as they're doing now is putting a new fascia on that sign.
Correct.
They're not changing the shape or size of the sign.
But when it was constructed, whenever it was, that's what was allowed. But if you look at those signs as an example, if you were to take the word Sea Trail off of it, you could construct that sign to be 84 square feet. The lettering itself is limited to the 64
Okay,
square
that's
foot.
not what our ordinance now, or as we're rewording it to say
Okay.
for interior signs in a residential. You had your hand up, and I don't know if you can shed, or did we already kind of
It's there. I mean,
abuse your
land-
question?
Yeah, one reason why I guess the big
Please, microphone, because people can't hear you.
One reason for the big spread is at the sanctuary. It's kind of right where that roundabout's coming in. We wanted to leave it low, very short with wording going across this way, so it would be long and short, so they could see over it and see. They could still see the sign, but they could see the mini and the nice landscaping and different things like that. That's why the length was so long that we requested. And then looked at other people. They may not want it short. They may want a narrower and taller sign.
You've not
So-
designed the sign yet, then.
We've got an idea of it. Yes, we haven't designed it, but we've got a good idea of
Is
it.
it taller than 6 feet in your mind?
No,
Is it longer than 14 foot wide? in
it's
your
right
mind?
at 14 feet.
Okay.
Because what we're envisioning is a nice knee wall, about waist high, tabby coat with a white roll lock on it to match our front signs, and where the roundabout, we're doing a little something in the first roundabout and have the sanctuary across the front of it.
Like
That's
into
what
a
we're
berm
envisioning.
kind of thing, or?
Well, not so much a berm, just some low lyme, flowers or annuals or something like that in front, and then the sanctuary on a nice tabby wall.
Okay, you're
that's
not
curved.
submitting your sign geometry right now.
No,
So
no,
we're not
no.
going to hold you to what you've just said,
No,
but
but
we need to
that's-
do our homework and have better wording
Okay.
so that developers will know what they can and can't do. If we are going to allow interior signs, and we probably are stepping on our feet here with the exterior signs as it's written right now.
What do you view the
Is this a trick
64
question?
What do you view the 64 square feet as?
Lettering.
Lettering.
Yes. That's typically how other jurisdictions have done
So
it.
maybe we need
But
to
it isn't
clear
what
that
we've
up.
said. But it isn't what we've said.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think typically in other jurisdictions it's treated that way as well. Yes, sir.
So
Yeah, it's
so we
designed
need to
to,
probably
it's
clear
designed
that
to
up.
be
We
like
got
that.
No
So
more than 64.
you
feet
don't
of
want your
lettering area.
you don't want your total sign to just say whatever it is and that be
Yeah,
maxed
you
out.
want background.
You want background. So that 84 to 64 square feet of difference is going to be your background area.
I think this is a highlight that shows why our UDO needs to be revisited. It's
And I guess
It's
one
things like
question
And,
I
this.
had
I
is,
think it
do we
takes. I'm sorry.
Please,
go ahead.
please.
why couldn't they just get a special use permit for this now? Why we got to do the text amendment?
Because special use, I mean, it's not, there's no provision for a sign to be allowed via special use. Now, jumping ahead a little bit, and getting very in the weeds of something that we can talk about at a later date, a little bit now is if this was a conditional use project where you had conditional use permission based on or conditional rezoning on a specific use, this could be allowed and discussed at a legislative type hearing to be allowed such special or kind of like planned, hey, this is what I want to do. Can you approve it? If it's in the box, you know, kind of create your own type of special zoning area and ordinances for it. We don't have that, hopefully, yet. But there's no allowance for just to get in our UDO to just give a developer special permission to do this or that. It's pretty clear. As I talked to Sybil on the phone, I think yesterday, you know, you have sign regulations for residential zoning districts and you have sign residentials for non-residential zoning districts. And Mr. Forster is right. There's not a lot of carryover between the two. You look at a project like the Sanctuary. You look at projects like Sea Trail. You look at other projects in the town, other developments, Oyster Bay. If they were to come through now and want additional signs for subdivisions because they are zoned MR3, MR2, BBR, BB. I know that beach is different, but we're talking about residential zoning districts. They are allowed 2 entrance signs, 1 monument sign that's limited to, I think, 14 or something square feet. That's it. So when you look at amenities inside, such as swimming pools, other examples like Sybil said, restaurants, golf courses, stuff like that. If they were to come through with brand new subdivisions and projects now, they would not be allowed signage for those amenities inside because it's limited.
Well,
So
why do we care? Why don't we just let them do what they want to do inside their community?
It's and the creativity is kind of stifled too when you put it
I mean,
in too
obviously,
tight of a box.
obviously the entrance sign is the interface between their community and the rest of the community.
Sure.
And maybe we have some
the caring part
duty
comes
to
in. Is
regulate, but inside their community, it's up to the community. Why don't we just leave it up to them?
I would tend to agree with you until the UDO comes in that would state that they're not allowed to do it because the UDO says they cannot, or says they just can't, or doesn't give them permission to do it at all. So therefore, if it doesn't give them permission, they can't do it.
I would caution you. I would always want some guardrails. I mean, you don't want to go in and half the people buy, and then all of a sudden the declarant say, "Hey, I want a flashing sign up here."
I mean,
you know, something crazy.
Yeah,
You want some guardrails.
You want regulations. I mean, if I told
but-
Landon and, you know, if I told, you know, Sea Trail and, you know, the Sanctuary, and you look at Oyster Bay, you look at Sandpiper Bay, you look at Jaguar's Lair, and just say, hey, you're good. You can do whatever you want to inside the walls of your, and next thing you know, you have a 80-foot, you know, tall illuminated sign that, you know, is very bright. You know, probably the person that's going to live next to it versus the person that's going to live half a mile away from it is going to have 2 different opinions on probably what they think about that sign.
One of the things, too, that Bob Forster brought up in his comments has to do with provisions for commercial signs. And Sybil just mentioned it as well. The VAC, Village Activity Center, is a perfect example. We now have a commercial site within what used to be just a swimming pool, an amenity center for the citizens and people that wanted to join.
Correct.
Now there's a restaurant in there.
Mhm.
What they did is they just leapfrogged onto the existing sign and put their sign on it.
Yep.
So I don't know that we can do anything about that. There was a sign there. They haven't changed the sign. They changed the wording on the sign, and I don't know that that's the spirit of our UDO. But I think there's some more important things that we need to consider before we reword a text amendment here. Such things as, how close can that sign be to somebody's property line? How close does it need to be to the right-of-way? I think
That
there needs
is laid out already in the sign ordinance. It's not particular in that section,
Okay, it's not in that section.
Let's see.
But if I owned a lot right next to where they were putting a sign, I'd want that sign to be at least 5 feet from whatever the setback would be required there, side setback, because the declarant could put the sign right on the property line if they wanted to.
Yeah, I think in our case, it's away from everything. It's right around about the front of the amenity. But yeah, I see your point.
And I think of things too, like I'm not offended by the Sea Trail signs or the Oyster Point sign they don't offend me. So when we're making it, that's not a big sign.
That's what I was saying about creativity. We've had to downplay our entry signs and we didn't want to. We wanted to do a sign about twice as big on each side coming into the sanctuary, it being a big, grand, nice.
20 years ago, you could have done that. Yes.
Yeah. So we've had to shrink it down.
Yeah. Sybil, we're dealing with it now because interior signs are not. They're only at the entrances are they allowed by our UDO. So we have to address it, or he can't put an interior sign for his amenity for his swimming
That's
pool.
kind of where you started, Pete. Maybe
Exactly.
we need to clear up what we expect from the entrance side that interfaces their community to the rest of the world.
I know.
And
So
maybe
Pete-
that should be more liberal and give them a little more size. And then, as you're saying, limiting to one more sign doesn't seem.
It's not.
It should be
yeah.
one sign per amenity or whatever you want to call
Amenity.
it, the common area of a smaller size than
Yeah.
the monument, the entrance sign.
So
I have no problem with that, but I also think if they put up signs that are offensive or ugly, whatever term we want to use,
Yeah, but he's not going to
they're not
because
going to
they're
sell
not
the
going to,
houses.
right.
exactly.
So,
exactly.
I want to address 3 points here. One, when you look at section 11.6, you look at general standards as far as signage, and you look at 11.6, you look at subsection G, and you look at setbacks. In the absence of a specific sign setback, all signs and sign structures must be located at least 5 feet from any property line.
Okay, I didn't see that
Yep.
in the section we're dealing with here.
And the only reason it's not in there is because it's not being amended.
And you're talking about 11.6?
Yep, 11.6 subsection G.
Okay, I see that.
All right. The second part was
And that is in the general standards,
That
which
is in
would
the
affect
general
all,
all
that
signs.
would residential and commercial signs. Okay.
Ron had a point, and it's blanking me now what he just said. But going back to what Sybil said, I drew this up, which met the intent of what the applicant wanted. When you want to look at this, and not getting too far ahead of ourselves as far as UDO amendments and working through that, but one additional monument sign per amenity. If that's the pleasure of the board, you're more than welcome to make that. I can change that as we move forward.
I need to think about that a little more because if the two amenities are side by side, that would allow them two signs. It's not per amenity; it's per facility, if you will. And I think we need to think about that wording.
And it's not a rush. I mean, if y'all need to take some time to think about it, I mean, we're trying to get the plans done, but it's going to take a little time to build the amenity. If you want to think about it, maybe get up with us. Maybe we can have a phone call or something, or sit down and talk. Whatever you want to do, that's fine with us. And maybe come back next time. I'm okay with that. I don't think something like this that's important. Maybe we need to rush. Maybe it needs to be discussed a little bit further.
Well, because it has reaching effects, as
absolutely. It's
Mr.
just
Forrester outlined to us.
I know we're asking, and you guys know kind of what we're thinking, but it could affect other things.
Well,
Absolutely.
I think the spirit of it is it's a good point. It's a
something that needs
a
to be
value,
addressed.
and Sybil talked about the people kind of wanting those signs, and it does make for better curb appeal.
Absolutely.
But it sounds to me
Thank you.
we need to.
Thanks.
We agree. Thank you.
Mhm.
Maybe separate the two. We on this rewrite tried to just use what we had and tack something onto it. The lighting part I'm okay with, but then we need to separate the two and actually specify entrance monument signs from internal facility amenity signs.
You mean in a separate section
Yes,
or a separate?
just separate
Yeah.
subsection.
Yeah. Okay.
Because really, they're kind of two. Obviously, the entrance sign off the road is kind of big. Wants to bring people to their community, right? But
Yeah.
inside the community, you want usable functional signs that are just not obnoxious, right? But provide the function of showing what's at this facility. Is it a pool? Is it a restaurant? Is it a tennis courts or whatever? And look nice. So maybe we do, even though it's kind of break it into 2 sections.
Okay.
What do you think, Chad? I
Um,
agree with Ron.
I'm up for the recommendation that Landon proposed. If the board needs more time, to come back with this in February, and it's the pleasure of the board as well. I'm happy to. I want to get something that works for not only the planning board, the town of Sunset Beach, move forward, and hopefully, with the spirit of this, be able to work something out not only with what Bill Clark and Paramount is proposing, but maybe other subdivisions in the town of Sunset Beach as well.
I know that Todd has had his hand up. Is there anything you wanted to add to this? Obviously, you have a vested interest in this.
And just to keep in mind, what our goal was to have that smaller low line wider instead of the big, you know.
But we've got to address Mets and bounds to
Yeah.
for other
Other
things that
stuff.
we can't even foresee right now.
Yeah, and that's what I just wanted to touch on, just because you guys were all talking about it. We ran into that issue to a certain degree at our sales office, and we had to remove some signage because the UDO only allows under the residential
2
guidelines.
foot.
Correct. Which is why now it just says sales office on the side, and we had to take down some the pretty parts, I guess, of the sign, for lack of better words. The other thing I would mention, and we don't own any of this, but I drive through Sea Trail obviously a lot. And I totally agree with what you're saying is the entry signs, they bring folks into the neighborhood. But when you're talking about a neighborhood that's the size of Sea Trail, which Sea Trail also includes, obviously, Oyster Point, and those folks having to get to the Pink Palace or the MAC or buildings such as a convention center or the restaurants they're in that hopefully someday somebody will bring back, that you just don't, you cannot get signage for those structures right now. And, when you're talking about a 50,000 square foot convention center, you can't advertise for people who, assuming they are coming from all over the country to participate in an event in that area or get to 3 different golf courses. So it is
It's an issue.
it's not a big problem per se, but it's a easily solvable problem.
When I look at other ordinances that I've worked with,
Thank you.
when I look at the sign ordinance and how many times I've read through this, it can be sometimes clear as crystal and sometimes about as clear as mud, depending on what is proposed to you. Other ordinances that I've worked with, you have signs that are for not really limited to zoning districts. You have signs for non-residential entities, and then signs for non-residential entities as well. And that actually clears it up because there are commercial entities inside residential zoning districts.
Sure.
With
And there's going to be more of them.
And there's going to be more of them. But, Todd and Landon are both right. When it comes to this, you don't have allowances for those entities to have signs. And if they are allowed, they're very limited what they can and can't do.
Is a better way to do it? Well,
There's a better way to
is a better way to do it to like not be as restrictive, or be restrictive, but then build in an allowance for review and approval, like in some sort of special permitting.
That would be good.
I mean, because we all know what we want. We want signs that are informative.
I don't think that signs need to go to the Board of Adjustments for approval based on a special
Yeah,
use
but
permit.
can't we let you guys do it?
The new guys.
The planning department, you guys.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, you
I mean,
didn't say new guys. You
Yeah, I look at sign regulations and approve and disapprove, stuff
Well,
on
the
it. But
UDO
it's just-
administrator has.
I do.
And she's present.
No, that's the UDO administrator. I am the UDO
I
administrator.
was saying,
I thought
She
our
is the
built it
town
in.
administrator was.
But as far as allowance of signs for, if it's not stated in the UDO, therefore it's not allowed. So putting it in the UDO to where it is allowed to regulations, to some kind of regulations, I think needs to be addressed.
All right, what do we do with this? Do we table this Article
Yes.
11 sign regulation
So if you
UDO
wanna-
text amendment?
So if you want to table it, giving staff direction. I have
If
direction.
we table it, we don't have to re-advertise.
Nope. We can bring it back in February, and I can put it as old business number 1.
Okay, well, that gives staff enough time to
Yeah.
wordsmanship.
Yep. I will work with this. I will reach out to Landon and Paramount Engineering. And
It's like one of those things when you see the sign, you know whether it's an okay sign or not. It's, right? I mean, but the problem is, how do you write it in advance?
Well, we don't want people to be able to put a sign in front of their house that says something to either. So
Yeah.
it's,
And writing this, I don't think I really clarified this to the applicant, but writing this, I anticipated some kind of progressive change that this would bring light on to further address staff to further look into it. So,
all right, I'd like to make a motion that we take under new business number 4 and table Article 11 sign regulations UDO text amendment until
February.
our February meeting, the date of which is
I don't know, 6, maybe
I
4.
think it's the third.
The 3rd.
okay, February 3rd meeting.
Yep, February 3rd, 2022.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Going to new business, the 5th item, UDO audit and rewrite discussions. I believe from discussions with Chad that we're not prepared to move forward with this
So
point number
at
5
this point
right
in the
now.
meeting, Chairman, if you would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting to a specific date of January 13th, 2022 at 9
Yes.
o'clock a.m.
Got it.
And that will, so we'll just adjourn till then. It will move the meeting, move this agenda to January 13th, pick up at item number 5 in the agenda order.
Okay.
And
I'd like to make a motion so saying that item number 5, UDO audit and rewrite discussions will be
recess.
recessed until a time date specific of Thursday, January 13th, 2022 at 9 a.m. here in council chambers.
Mhm.
Do
As
I hear
long
a
as
second?
Lisa is okay with that? Yep.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Seeing that we've thankfully run out of things to talk about, appreciate the participation in the audience, and the comments made, and the packages put together by the developers and applicants. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the
Recess.
meeting, or recess the meeting
Recess.
until, thank you. And can we have a second on that?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is recessed.